the ancient book of Enoch.
Book of Enoch, powerful book. You know that Enoch was a real powerful man because he's talked about in the Bible.
The Book of Enoch, banned from the Bible, reveals shocking secrets of our history. The mysterious Book of Enoch was left out of the Bible, which has led to a lot of interest and discussion. This exciting book reveals hidden truths about how people came to be, the existence of fallen angels, and visions of the end of the world that make us question what we think we know about history and faith. What was so shocking about it that it had to be taken down? Come with us as we look into the lost pages of Enoch and find secrets that might change the way we think about the past.
His father was a god with a lowercase g, and his mother was a human being, supposedly. This is what the stories say.
Origins and discovery of the Book of Enoch. The Book of Enoch, sometimes written as 1 Enoch, is an old Jewish book that is thought to have been written by Enoch, who was Noah's great-grandfather. In the Hebrew Bible, Enoch is a mysterious person. In Genesis, he is briefly described as a man who walked with God and was taken to heaven without dying. The Book of Enoch goes into more detail about this short statement. It describes Enoch as a prophet who sees God and is shown the secrets of heaven and earth. The story of how the Book of Enoch came to be is long and complicated. It is thought to have been written over a number of hundred years, with the earliest parts going back to around the year 3000 BCE. The text is not a single book, but rather a group of writings that were put together to make a story. During the time of the Second Temple, these writings show the religious and philosophical worries of different Jewish groups. This was a volatile and changing time in Jewish history. The exact author of the book is still unknown, but it is clear that it had a significant impact on how early Jewish and Christian thought developed. In the beginning, some Jewish and Christian groups saw the Book of Enoch as holy writing, but over time it lost popularity and was taken out of the official Hebrew Bible. In some religious traditions, especially the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, the text was kept in its full because it was still respected. The Book of Enoch was first found again in modern times when old texts were found. In the 18th century, the first critical text was found in Ethiopia. It was brought to Europe by James Bruce, a Scottish traveler. The full text of the Book of Enoch was written in Ge'ez, which is the sacred language of the Ethiopian Church. The Dead Sea Scrolls were found in the Qumran caves near the Dead Sea in the middle of the 20th century. They were a more significant and more critical find. Several Aramaic pieces of the Book of Enoch were found on these scrolls. These pieces gave experts a lot of information about the text's early history and its place in Jewish apocalyptic literature in general. These pieces, which date from the 3rd century BCE to the 1st century BCE, prove that the Book of Enoch came from ancient times and was used a lot in Jewish religious groups. The ways that the Book of Enoch was kept safe and passed down are exciting parts of its past. Even though it wasn't included in the official Hebrew Bible, the book was passed down orally and in writing in many communities. In Ethiopia, the Book of Enoch is still an essential holy book because it is part of the Bible used by the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. The most complete and well-known form of the Book of Enoch is in Ge'ez. It was translated from earlier versions in Aramaic and Greek. Not only did Ethiopians keep copies of parts of the Book of Enoch, but people also kept copies in Greek and Latin. These pieces were essential for putting the text back together and figuring out how it affected early Jewish and Christian thought. Finding the Aramaic fragments in the Dead Sea Scrolls shed more light on where the text came from and what role it played in the religious and philosophical discussions of the Second Temple period. The fact that the Book of Enoch has been passed down through many countries and languages shows how deeply it has affected religious thought. Its ideas about divine judgment, the nature of angels, and what happens to bad people struck a chord with many religious groups, which helped it stay alive, even though foremost religious leaders tried to shut it down. There are 5 main parts to the Book of Enoch. Each one gives a different view of the old Jewish religion and thought. The first part, called the Book of the Watchers, is probably the most well-known. It tells the story of the Watchers, a group of angels who came to Earth, mated with human women, and had children. These children were giants called the Nephilim. This part talks about how the Watchers' revolt against God corrupted things and caused chaos, which led to their punishment in the end. The second part, called the Book of Parables, is about the visions and prophecies that God gave to Enoch. It mainly talks about God's wrath and the coming of the Messiah. Early references to the idea of the Son of Man, which would later be essential to Christian theology, make this part very important. Now, we'll talk about the astronomical book. This part goes into great depth about cosmology and how the stars and planets move. It shows how ancient Jews thought about the universe and how God ordered it, connecting the spiritual and moral worlds with the heavenly ones. The fourth part, called the Book of Dream Visions, is a collection of Enoch's symbolic dreams that tell the story of the world from the beginning of time to the coming of the Messianic kingdom. These dreams stress the ideas of divine justice and how good will win over evil in the end. Finally, this letter from Enoch is a summary and call for the good to stay strong in their faith in a world that is bad and full of sin. It supports the main idea of the book, which is that God will punish the bad and honor the good. The story of the Watchers and the Nephilim is one of the most interesting in the book of Enoch. The Watchers were originally angels whose job it was to keep an eye on people. However, they decided to go against their divine duty by coming down to earth and marrying people. The Nephilim were born from their union. They were a race of giants who were both solid and evil. Because these beings were there was a lot of bloodshed and corruption, so God stepped in. The Watchers were heavily punished for their sins by being thrown into a fire pit, and the Nephilim were wiped out in the Great Flood. Although this story explains where evil comes from, it also serves as a warning about what happens when people don't follow God's rules. A lot of the book of Enoch is about prophecies and visions, especially in the book of parables and the book of dream visions. Enoch is shown to be a good man who God picked to hear divine messages about the future. Many of these predictions are end-of-the-world scenarios that talk about the coming judgment, where the bad will be punished and the good will be rewarded. The visions are full of symbolic images that show heavenly halls, angelic beings, and God's kingdom winning in the end. Some of Enoch's visions go into great depth about the end times when good and evil will fight a final, decisive battle. This end-of-the-world theme, which focuses on divine justice and God's inevitable punishment, hit home with Jews during the time of the Second Temple and later had an impact on Christian eschatology. Reasons for exclusion from the Bible. The Book of Enoch is an exciting book that has had a prolonged impact on religious thought, even though it's not part of the Bible. The early church had a range of feelings about the Book of Enoch. At first, it was trendy among some Christian groups. It even affected the New Testament, especially the Epistle of Jude, which quotes straight from it. Things got more complicated though, as the church tried to make the Christian canon official. The Book of Enoch was omitted because it didn't meet the standards that the church was starting to set for being in the New Testament. It was essentially to the early church fathers that the books they read were clearly written by the apostles or close friends of the apostles. Because there was no clear link between the Book of Enoch and that, it began to be seen with some doubt. The church was also trying to come up with a single set of beliefs. The mysterious and end-of-the-world themes in the Book of Enoch may have been seen as too controversial or divisive, which is why it was pushed to the edges of church life over time. The Book of Enoch was excluded from the Bible due to severe theological differences. The Book of Enoch approached angels, devils, and the afterlife differently than other biblical texts. The issue was significant. The Watchers, fallen angels who disobeyed God by mating with human women, and their progeny, the Nephilim, added a convoluted dimension to the account of how evil began that didn't mesh with Jewish or Christian beliefs. After this story, people saw the world as good and evil with equal powers. This upset early Christian philosophers who wished to emphasize God's complete control. Another issue was that the Book of Enoch offered less information about the future. Several speculative and possibly inaccurate details concerning souls, heaven, and God's judgment were offered. Because these passages differed from the canonical scriptures, the church fathers may have decided the Book of Enoch shouldn't be in the Bible. Even though the Book of Enoch wasn't included in the Bible, it still had a significant impact on other religious books and customs. People in both early Jewish and Christian groups were open to its end-of-the-world themes and visions of God's judgment. Other writings, mainly apocryphal and pseudepigraphical texts, also talked about the end times, the Messiah, and the final decision. These writings often built on or added to the ideas found in the Book of Enoch. Not only did the text affect Jewish and Christian traditions, but it also affected Gnostic thinking, where the ideas of hidden knowledge and the battle between light and darkness in the universe were developed further. The Book of Enoch is an exciting part of the Bible that is included in the canon of the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. The book wasn't just kept safe in Ethiopia, it became an essential part of the religion's lessons and ceremonies. This shows that the Book of Enoch has a deep spiritual meaning that lasts, even for people who are not Christian. Even though it's not in the official Bible, the Book of Enoch has had an enormous impact on the history of religious thought, especially in early Christianity and Judaism. Its vivid images, complicated stories, and end-of-the-world themes hit home strongly in these traditions, influencing different parts of religious literature, mysticism, and even modern spiritual movements. Influence on early Judaism. The Book of Enoch had a significant impact on Jewish thinking in the past, especially when it came to writing about the end of the world. A lot of people were interested in end-of-the-world visions and predictions during the time of the Second Temple, which was a time of great turmoil and hope for the Jewish people. The Book of Enoch, which tells in great detail about trips to heaven, the punishment of bad people, and the final victory of the good, fits right in with this setting. Its stories helped people understand the cosmic fight between good and evil and gave them hope that, even though there was suffering at the time, divine justice would win in the end. One of the most important ways that the Book of Enoch changed early Jewish thinking was by showing how the Watchers, who were angels who turned against God, lived. This story brought up the idea that evil in the world came from the acts of supernatural beings, not just bad behavior by humans. The Jewish view of the end of the world changed a lot because of this idea. It led to a more divided view of the world, where good and evil were seen as fighting across the universe. The Book of Enoch's focus on the coming judgment and the creation of God's kingdom fit with people's hopes for a messianic king at the time, making its themes even more critical in Jewish end-of-the-world literature. Furthermore, the Book of Enoch had an impact that went beyond its direct benefits to Jewish end-of-the-world thinking. Later Jewish writings, like the Dead Sea Scrolls, which have parts of the Book of Enoch and other books with similar end-of-the-world and occult themes, use some of its themes and ideas. The book also had an apparent effect on Jewish mysticism, especially in the growth of traditions that stress the divine's secret knowledge, which can be seen in Kabbalistic thought today. Early Christianity was also changed by the Book of Enoch, especially in the areas of Christian spirituality and Gnosticism. A lot of what early Christian groups believed was in the Book of Enoch. This was especially true for groups that were more spiritual or esoteric. The authors went into great detail about heavenly realms, angelic beings, and the mysteries of the universe. This gave Christian mystics a lot of ideas for how to understand and feel God more deeply. The Book of Enoch influenced Gnosticism, which believed in secret knowledge, gnosis, and separate spiritual and material worlds. Gnostics believed the Book of Enoch validated their belief that the material world was broken and flawed due to forces at battle with the spiritual God. Some Gnostic sects used the Watchers and Nephilim narrative to explain how spiritual beings became trapped in human forms. This story reinforced the Gnostic view of the world as a place of anguish and confinement from which the soul must escape by discovering secrets. The Book of Enoch influenced Christian mysticism. Early church fathers like Origen and Tertullian wrote about angels, demons, and the afterlife, citing the text. Unfortunately, the book was removed from the Bible, but its concepts expanded through Christian mystical literature, forming Christian esotericism and mysticism. The Book of Enoch is gaining popularity among scholars, religious groups, and esoteric traditions. In the 18th century, the Ethiopian book was translated into European languages, sparking new interest in its content and historical significance. Researchers discovered how the book influenced end-of-the-world writing and esoteric thought in early Judaism and Christianity. People who are interested in alternative religions and esoteric faiths have found the Book of Enoch attractive again in the 20th and 21st centuries. The hidden knowledge, divine judgment, and cosmic battle themes in the book are similar to modern movements that want to look at spirituality outside of religious frameworks. A lot of people in the New Age and occult traditions see the Book of Enoch as a way to gain spiritual knowledge and mystical understanding. The Watchers and the Nephilim that it shows have also captured the imaginations of people who are interested in the secrets of lost civilizations, alien theories, and the start of evil. The Book of Enoch has also had an impact on modern religious groups that focus on end-of-the-world themes and the anticipation of a judgment that is soon to come. For instance, some Christian fundamentalist groups have used the Book of Enoch to back up how they see scripture prophecy, especially when it comes to the end times and Christ's return. People have used the book's detailed descriptions of the Watcher's fall and the final judgment to support their beliefs about what evil is and why God has to be involved in human events. Controversies and conspiracy theories. The Book of Enoch has been the subject of many debates and ideas, especially about why it wasn't included in the Bible. Some theorists think that the religious leaders purposely hid the Book of Enoch because it had controversial information in it, especially about the Watchers, who were fallen angels who disobeyed God by coming to earth and dealing with people. Some people think that these stories, which deal with forbidden knowledge and the beginnings of evil, were too controversial or just too revealing for the religious establishment. As a result, the book was banned to keep control of doctrine and keep people from being interested in these mysterious topics. In modern times, the Book of Enoch has also been linked to ideas about ancient astronauts. These theories say that aliens visited Earth in the past and were thought to be gods or angels. People who believe this theory say that the descriptions of the Watchers and the Nephilim in the Book of Enoch show that these beings were actually aliens who dealt with early humans. They say that the advanced technology and information talked about in the book could be seen as proof of alien interference, which was then twisted in religious texts. Some people are interested in this idea, which makes the Book of Enoch's history even more mysterious and exciting. It has been in movies, books, and online communities, and the Book of Enoch is now part of everyday culture. Many fictional works, from fantasy books to sci-fi movies, have been influenced by its themes of hidden knowledge, end-of-the-world visions, and fights in space. The book had an impact because it's often mentioned in stories about old puzzles, secret histories, and the supernatural. People talk about the Book of Enoch in online groups, where they usually talk about conspiracy theories, alternate histories, and the search for hidden truths. This keeps the Book of Enoch's mystery alive in modern culture. The Book of Enoch's shocking revelations. The Book of Enoch is full of strange and often shocking discoveries that have interested both scholars and Christians for hundreds of years. It is different from other ancient texts because it has a unique view of cosmology, the role of fallen angels, and end times prophecies. It gives us a glimpse into a world entirely of divine secrets and end times visions. One of the most exciting things about the Book of Enoch is its unique view of how the world was made, which is very detailed and complicated. The Bible's creation stories are pretty simple. The Book of Enoch, on the other hand, talks about a complex, multi-layered world that is run by a hierarchy of celestial beings. It shows a universe where the stars, planets, and other heavenly bodies are not just lifeless things but have life and a purpose, and are often pictured as angelic beings. An angel takes Enoch on a tour of the world, where he sees how the heavens work and learns about the mysteries of creation firsthand. There is a radical view in this cosmology that the universe is a living, changing thing, and that everything in it is linked and has a divine purpose. One of the most shocking things that the Book of Enoch says is about the role of the Watchers, who are lost angels. These angels disobeyed God by coming down to earth, where they married people and had giant children who are called Nephilim. The Watchers also taught people illegal things like advanced technology, weapons, and magic that were the secrets of heaven. This story presents the idea that the Watchers' rebellion causes a lot of the bad things that happen in the world and how they have changed people. According to the Book of Enoch, these lost angels were strong beings who had a significant impact on history. In the end, they were punished by God by causing the Great Flood to destroy the world. There are also dramatic predictions about the end times in the Book of Enoch. It paints an obvious and scary picture of the final judgment. Enoch sees a future in which good people are praised and bad people are sent to hell to be punished forever. The book talks about how the earth will be cleansed of all evil and the fallen angels coming back to face their final doom. Apocalyptic images such as visions of fire, brimstone, and heavenly punishment are all over these prophecies. The end times predictions in the Book of Enoch were so vital that they shaped early Jewish and Christian eschatology. They laid the groundwork for later apocalyptic writing and changed how believers thought about the final judgment and what would happen to people. The Book of Enoch, banned from the Bible, uncovers startling secrets about our past. Dive deeper into these revelations by clicking on the video now. Remember to like and subscribe for more intriguing content.